Howdy y'all, this is Mike KO4GRT. I want to show you my 70 centimeter ground plane packable antenna. This thing's about an 11-inch piece of 1.5" PVC. I have everything I need in here to fit it up to the mobile. I have the handheld. I have an adapter for the antenna and all, and about 12 to 15 foot of coax just wrapped up around the outside. It's RG8X, so none of this coiling up will matter or anything. It's pretty flexible. It straightens back out pretty easy. Now, everything I need to assemble this antenna and operate it is in this tube. We have extra machine screws and extra washers. We have the SMA to UHF connector for the handheld. We have the radiating element. The screwdriver to assemble the whole thing with, and 4 ground elements. It's pretty easy to assemble. Threaded these lugs on the SO239, so I would not need a nut on the back. The lock washers keep everything pretty in line. Once you tighten them up, things don't move around very easily. It's a fast, easy antenna to assemble. I use this thing hiking quite a bit. I put it in my pack when I go hiking. And I set my truck to crossband a lot of times with a repeater that I know I'll be able to hit with the truck. An active repeater. And oftentimes I'll get a hold of somebody beforehand and I'll make sure that there's folks monitoring, because I hike in a lot of places that there's just no cell service. You know, I get up in the mountains and sometimes the handheld antenna will not reach the truck. Absolutely won't reach it. But if I throw this ground plane up, 9 times out of 10, even if there's a ridge in the way, if I hike up a little bit and I get it strung up in a tree, this thing is going to reach out the truck. And most of the time it'll reach a pretty decently far away repeater. I've hooked this particular antenna to my mobile in my truck, and I hit a 47-mile repeater with 50 watts. It's super easy to construct. On the top of the SO239, I soldered in the radiating element and I crimped a ring terminal. You got to remember that from the top of this ring terminal to the bottom of this SO239 right here is the full length. This ring terminal will add length to your element, so you got to get that adjusted right before you solder it in. But this ring terminal works to hang it up in a tree with a piece of string. The ground elements all have a little bit of a kink to them, and that's going to be important. When we put this together, I'll show you here in a minute, we need to have these ground elements all at about the same angle and all at that perfect 45 from each other. And what that does is it'll bring this antenna into a 50 ohm matched impedance. If you were to have these ground elements poking straight out off the side instead of at an angle, you would be closer to a 78 ohm impedance, which is pretty common of a dipole, which is not a bad mismatch if you're running higher watts, right? Like if you were running 50 to 100 watts, a 75 ohm impedance really wouldn't be that bad. It might change your SWR by a whole one place. So if you would get 2 to or 1 to 1 with a 50 ohm, you might get 2 to 1 with a 75 ohm. But we're going to run this off of a 5-watt handheld, so we want the best match that we could get. And by putting a little angle on it and bringing the fields off of these elements closer together, it does bring the impedance match to 50 ohms. We'll get this thing put together, and I'll show you what it looks like all put together and straightened out. I think I could pause it, but it's so fast that it won't save much on the time. I kind of wish I would have hardened these wires before I put them together, before I built this antenna. They're a little flexible, and they do get beat up in that tube a little bit. But it's not too bad. If you were broke down on the side of the road in a place with no cell service, and you knew you could reach a repeater if you just had a little more range, GMRS, this thing's pretty wide banded, so it runs well through the GMRS as well. I get right around a 1.1 to 1 pretty much across the hand band in 70 centimeters, and it's up there right around a 1.7 to 1 in the GMRS range, which is it's not really bad for GMRS. It'll reach out just fine. And if you found yourself in a spot and you hook this to your mobile in your vehicle, you're broke down, you're going to get quite a good range off of this little antenna. We're going to test it out with the little 5-watt Baofeng here in just a minute. Go ahead and get it lined up. Now you can probably see how they all tilt a little bit off, and how coming out at that 45. It's super easy to make. Ring terminals tapped and machine screws, SO239, it all fits in a tube. Let's go set it up and see if we can at least get a squelch off a repeater. Alright y'all, just for fun, it's only about 9 feet off the ground on my son's swing set. The repeater we're going to try to hit is on the other side of that ridge, about 15 miles or so, and we're going to try it with the regular antenna on the handheld to start with high power.
Channel mode.
High power. KO4 GRT testing. No squelch back. Let's go ahead and change out this antenna. My adapter on.
Channel mode.
Back to high power. KO4 GRT testing.
The WA4FLH repeater.
So that shows we're definitely getting gain off of this antenna compared to the you know, a Bree or signal stick or even the rubber ducky that comes with it. We're not that high off the ground. If we got this even higher, we could extend our range and our capabilities. It's a great antenna to have. Keep it in a pack. You've seen how I had all the coax wrapped around the tube. Everything's in a nice little package that you can take with you, stow it in the seat back of the truck or in the truck door, your hiking pack. It's an emergency must-have. Appreciate your time, everybody.